think the river trips are unique that, as you know, most vacations and travel, whether you're going on land, road trip or whatever, require kind of daily decisions. After you shove off at the put in on a river, the river takes over. So you have uninterrupted time to think and enjoy nature, have great conversations. The river's going to make the decisions of where you're going. You're not going to, change the course. And you don't have cell phones, and the river is your guide. It's a great experience.
Hello, intrepid listeners, and welcome to the Carpe Diem Live Your Dream podcast. Today's episode is about the joys of whitewater rafting expeditions, and not just the rafting itself, but how a casual hobby can turn into a lifetime of wonderful memories with friends and family and expose you to a whole different world out there. My guest, Jim King, has rafted rivers in Zambia, India, Bhutan, China, Peru, Chile, Siberia, Ecuador, and lots of other places. Big rivers. And while it's Jim speaking with me on this show, I have to give credit where credit is due. It has been Susie, his wife of 57 years, who made his adventures possible. Enjoy the show. Well, hello, Jim King. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Great. Glad to be on it, Dale.
If I'm correct, you just came back not too many weeks ago from a nice rafting expedition in Alaska. Is that correct?
Yeah, we went up to the Yukon east of Haines, Alaska, which is north of Juneau. There were 9 guys that went on this trip. Most of our previous trips have always been whitewater rafting. This was more of a float through the Yukon with glaciers, icebergs, beautiful scenery, supposedly more grizzly bears than anywhere in the world, but we didn't see one.
Oh, which is good and bad.
Yeah, it's good and bad. We would have liked to have seen one. Lots of footprints, but another nice adventure with friends in the wilderness and natural beauty.
So this was 5 days on the river?
It was 5 nights. Yeah, we camped 5 nights, had tents.
So you were on the Yukon River?
No, we were on the Alsek, Alsek, down to another river, the Tansami, that come together at the confluence and they flow out into the ocean. It was a very enjoyable trip, a little different.
A little different in what way?
Well, most of all these, every other trip, that I sent you that list, I've been on 22 raft trips and 13 of them international. And most of these are whitewater raft trips where you have a lot of whitewater, a lot of, challenging water to deal with. And this was a trip where it was more of a float. The water was 37 degrees, so you didn't want to be in it. And it was more of the elements. We had some rain, a little bit of cold, but we were fortunate. Most of the weather was good. It was different. The challenges were different from all our other trips. And then of those trips that I have gone on, 6 have been family trips, 2 with just grandkids only, no parents. And then the other 16 are with this group of friends that I have.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned you've done a lot of trips, and I'm looking at your list. So you've been whitewater rafting in Chile, Ecuador, in China, Canada, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Peru, India, Siberia, Bhutan. You've gotten around, not to mention a whole bunch of rivers in the U.S. So you're a rafting fanatic, huh?
Well, I don't know if it's a fanatic. It's something that I enjoy, and I enjoy putting the trips together. Got a great group. I'm fortunate to have this group of friends that are always up, and we're kind of do it every year and a half or so. Going to see different places is part of the adventure and charm of these.
I've never been rafting for more than a 3-hour float trip. And I don't know why, because I'm a big canoeer from my past and I would canoe a lot. But I got to believe with rafting, you talk about sort of the camaraderie aspect. You're all just sitting in a raft, so much time to just talk and spend quality time together without phones and internet and such. Yeah.
Well, actually on the whitewater trips, you're paddling most of the day. So
Are you?
an ideal thing would be to have, it depends on the river, but you either have 4 or 6 paddlers in each raft
Uh-huh.
and no gear on the big whitewater trips. And then, you're paddling all the way down the river. So, a couple hours in the morning, a couple in the afternoon, huge rapids. So during the day, you're not really talking to each other that much. Sometimes you got flat water, you do. But most of the
Hmm.
camaraderie is, off the river, setting up tents, having, playing horseshoes, having cocktails along the river, eating, and then getting up the next morning. So you have a lot of time to talk with each other, but I would say most of it is off the river, except if you got some, you have some calm stretches of river most of the time. So you might have 15, 20 minutes and then you're back into, challenging rapids.
Well, I guess, like you say, that really depends on your choice of river. And it sounds then like you pick some challenging rivers in your past.
Yeah, we've probably done, as a group of unprofessional rafters, have probably done more big whitewater than most people have. The Great Bend of the Yangtze is huge whitewater. The biggest whitewater we probably did was at the Siang. That's in India, right up at the border of China. It took us 6 days to get to the put in there.
Oh,
And
6 days just to start?
yeah, just to start. I mean, time jeeps, airline flights. Anyway, so that was those were the big whitewater, and then the ones in Chile are challenging whitewater. That Bio isn't running anymore. They ran a dam. The Futalefu is kind of a famous river, but we've done a lot of the great rivers of the world, and they're all a little different. We've had some big challenges. Fortunately, we haven't lost anybody, but we have the doctor along so he can sew people up if there's cuts or somebody gets hit
You
with the
hope.
oar or something. Anyway, a lot of it is big white water, but it also is when we were younger that Siang is probably the last big white water that we did, around there. I mean, very big. Like the Siang has got, I think the runoff is 5 times the amount of water as a Grand Canyon. It's a huge river and real small canyons. So that was a piece of work.
When you say big whitewater, I'm kind of familiar. You have class one, two, three, four.
Yeah, it goes to six. Dale, I'm telling you what I understand. It might be technically incorrect,
Yeah,
but
likewise, you and me both.
but in general, they're classified 1 to 6. 6 you can't run, and 5 is extremely challenging. So 4 or 5 is the highest you go. The only river that has goes to 10, I think, is the Grand Canyon, and it classifies their rapids from 1 to 10. And for what reason, I have no idea. So, like the Siang, when we put in there, that river had never been where we were running it, had never been run before, really, without getting into a lot of detail. Yeah, we had the wrong raft set up there and what have you. And the first big rapid was within 100 yards of the put in. So usually you have some time, all paddle together back and forth, yada, yada, getting ready to raft. We only had 5 guys on that trip and it only had 4 wetsuits and it's coming out of the Himalaya. I mean, it's colder than hell. So I didn't have a wetsuit.
Oh, you drew the short straw.
Yeah, well, I put the trip together, so I took the short straw.
Oh,
So we had 2 gear boats. One of them went down before us, and I think they knew we were going to flip upside down. There's no way we were going to get through this.
oh.
And so the gear boat, which has thousands, probably a couple thousand pounds of gear on it, went completely underwater. Only the guide's head was out of it. There was chickens on there that we were supposed to eat, and they all drowned. And they were in wooden cages. I mean, this is out in the middle of nowhere, right on the China border. And so when we went through that rapid, we made it through the first couple of rapids, but these waves were like 15 feet high. They're huge. So we got almost at the end, then we went up one of the waves and we flipped over on our back, and then we're all in the water. On that river, on a lot of rivers, you face kind of down and see where you're going so you don't hit a rock. There's so much water in this, you put your back to it so you can breathe without, there's a lot of foam
Yeah.
and they don't want you choking on that. So you go backwards down the river and then you try to swim back to the raft. And on all these big rivers, we've had 1 or 2 safety kayakers. So if you're out of the raft, anyway, we needed the safety kayakers on this raft. So we flipped 2 times in the first day and it changed the whole complexion of the trip.
As you were explaining this, I went on Google and just looked up Siang River photos. It's Siang. I can see there's some pretty intense whitewater, and it looks like some very long chains where if you go in, you're going to be in for a long time.
you're going to be in for a bit, and you need the safety kayakers and the eddies. Those eddy lines
Yeah.
on the Siang. Those were like 9 inches to a foot difference in the water level. So you couldn't swim across the eddy line. And one of the guys got stuck in that. Unfortunately, they were able to throw a rope, one of those ropes to him
Yeah.
with a rope bag. I would say that's the river that if we were going to lose someone, that was probably the river.
Yeah. So these are
And
not risk-free trips you're doing.
though that and the ones that were the most risky was the Siang and the Yangtze, because that's right at the headwaters of the Yangtze. Everyone thinks of the Yangtze where they dammed it. And there's it's a huge lake, but this is way west, right at the headwaters of it.
Uh-huh.
They used to mine, I think it was gold or something in that river, and so there was an old mining equipment there, and it was blocking the river. So we had a day of we had to take all the rafts apart, all the frames, deflate the rafts, and then have a portage that took morning to night
Oh.
to get past this. And fortunately, there were a couple of Chinese guys in sport coats walking along the river, hauling an engine block, and we hired them to help us carry everything down. Without them, we might still be there.
Did you know this was going to be required, or this was a surprise?
No, this is a surprise because it hadn't been. Again, this was that piece of equipment was not in the river a month before we went. And I don't know how it got, it's not operational equipment. It must have had a big storm, a rock slide, something happened. And that was another one where a couple of rafts turn over in the first big rapid that we had, but it wasn't as treacherous water as the Siang. And the rapids were a little smaller, but all these have big whirlpools, that you don't want to be in. That usually, you go down, you can come out the bottom of them on the Colorado River or something. Well, these, I don't know where they went, but you didn't want to be anywhere near them.
Well, it's kind of like ocean waves. I mean, I've been in rapids, I don't know, maybe class 3, and to the point where you don't really have control of where the river takes you. You're kind of at the mercy of the waters. And to be in something even bigger, I would think that gets a little scary at times.
Well, it gets a little scary. We with the right rafts, and I think the best rafts are with a center mount. Where there's a guide in there with real long oars.
Right.
Uh, that is ideal because you can square up to the waves.
Uh-huh.
On the Siang, we had rafts that are used in the Grand Canyon, where the guide is really like the rudder, and he's got a paddle back there, but only one paddle, but he's acting as a rudder, steering it. And you really need a center mount or something that can turn the bow of the raft 90 degrees into the, or whatever degree you want it, but using 90 degrees into the wave.
Yeah.
So with a wrong raft, you end up being sideways on the waves and you're screwed.
Okay.
But most of them, you just have a real thrill. Someone might get out of the raft, you can get back in. It takes a lot of coordination, a lot of teamwork to paddle the rafts, and it's challenging, but a lot of fun. Most of the time, it's scary. You're pretty sure no one's going to get hurt unless you go out of exactly the wrong place where you're slamming into some rocks or something.
Right.
But, like the Colorado is a fabulous river, one that I recommend everyone go on. It's very doable. They're big rapids, but it's very doable. And the other thing is, in the Colorado, there's a lot of people on it downstream of you. So if you happen to go in, you're not going to, there was no one downstream on us in China or when we went on the Siang in India. No one's been on it for days or months or years, so if you're out there by yourself, you got a long float.
Yeah, that, and if there's any real problems, you're probably 48 hours away from evacuation.
Yeah, there's no evacuation, but pretty much on it.
Wow. Well, tell us what was your favorite, or can you even pick a favorite?
Favorite raft trips is everyone asks, what's your favorite raft trip? I kind of say favorite for what, I would say that like for a family trip, I'll break them down a little bit. For a family trip, I think the Middle Fork in Idaho is the best. It's got class 3 rapids, nice beaches, beautiful scenery. It's a 4-night trip. It's perfect for families, safe and what have you. It's beautiful, fairly easy to get to.
You say Middle Fork, that's the Middle Fork of the Salmon River?
In the Middle Fork of the Salmon, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Then the Grand Canyon would be at the top of, for a majestic, awesome, kind of a spiritual trip. You can't beat it. The sunsets, best time to go on that is after September 1, because they don't allow the power boats on it after that. They have jet boats that, take day rides up to Colorado there. Our group did a 14-day trip there from Lee's Ferry, which is at one end, and went all the way into Lake Mead. And it
14
was
days on the Grand
yeah,
Canyon, on the
on the
Colorado.
Grand Canyon. Yeah, on the Grand
Wow.
Canyon. That's something, the sunsets, there's hikes up to granaries. It's real special. The stones, it's just awesome, and one that I'd highly recommend. The most fun for rapids was probably the Zambezi River, which is between Zambia and Zimbabwe. That because it's a drop pool river, which means the rapids drop and then there's a pool of water there. So if you go out of the raft, you're going to be in a pool. You're not going to be, and there's a chance to get back in. You're not going to be going, a mile down the river. So that has some fun rapids and a lot of them. And then you see hippopotamus and alligators and stuff. It was fun. The most challenging, as I said, was a Siang. Then one other trip, I put together a trip called Top to Bottom. So we went from the border of Chile with Ecuador down to Terra del Fuego.
Oh,
Not we did some rafting, but it was really a road trip through Chile and Argentina and all through Patagonia. Chris Tompkins, he owned North Face and Esprit, he built the national parks down there, and we stayed at his national park, and
huh.
we're going to have dinner with him, but unfortunately he died in a kayaking accident right before he got there. So that was a great trip, from seeing Fitzroy, the mountains, to Patagonia, to Argentina. Did some fly fishing. That was 30 days, so that's as long as I can get. Five of us went for the whole 30 days, and then four of us went for the whole time. Five met us halfway and did the southern half of Chile.
Oh, you have some great pals. Wow. What a bonding.
Those were what I'd say kind of my favorite raft trips. And then the ones with the grandkids, that's a whole different thing. But I'd had this where I take the grandkids, but their parents can't go. And then a couple of my friends, and it's not always the same group, because I have to find guys with grandkids that want to go,
Yeah.
which sometimes isn't that easy. So those are fun too, because they're little kids and a lot of games and fishing and just screwing around with the grandkids.
So, my podcast's objective is just to encourage and inspire people to get outside into nature and just talk about a way to have a good quality trip out in the wild where you're covering some ground. You can make it hard, you can make it easy. Sounds like a really fun way to be outside.
I think the river trips are unique, that, as you know, most vacations and travel, whether you're going on land, road trip or whatever, require kind of daily decisions.
Hmm.
After you shove off at the put in on a river, the river takes over. So you have uninterrupted time to think and enjoy nature, have great conversations. The river's going to make the decisions of where you're going. You're not going to, change the course. And you don't have cell phones, and the river is your guide. It's a great experience.
As you describe it, and I'm sure there's some tough moments or miserable moments, bad weather, or like you say, dunked in this young with no wetsuit in 40-degree water. But why do you suppose more people don't do these? There's definitely a cost.
It's a cost, but there's also, there's 2-day trips and 3-day trips. So cost is one thing. I think that sleeping in tents is something that, like, my wife has no interest in sleeping in a tent. I think that tent thing, and camping out and no permanent restrooms and all that adds to a little anxiety with people. In some ways, it's kind of like skiing. A lot of the river companies, show the rapids, and that's skiing's changed a little bit. They used to just throw on their advertisement showing people jump off of cliffs and all this wild stuff, where families don't want that. They want to protect their kids and have a good time. And it takes a little bit of a willingness to kind of rough it. But I've just found that it's a nice way to unwind and, like you say, spend some time with nature and, assess where you're going in life and have a good time.
I'm thinking on the rafting, That's not roughing it nearly as much as a canoeing or kayaking. You can pack so much stuff in a raft. I would say the other thing that's kind of neat about these rafting trips, you talk about bringing grandkids, depends on the river, but you can make it a family outing. And how old are you, Jim?
I'm 80.
You're 80 and you just came back from a week-long rafting trip in Alaska. That is awesome. And the buddies you were with?
Probably the youngest is 75, maybe, or 72. I don't know exact ages, but there's no one that's 60. One thing is when you turn 80 and there's so many parts in your body, there's something going wrong somewhere.
What words of inspiration would you have for our listeners to just get out and try a river rafting trip?
I would say that a rafting trip allows them to be in nature, get rid of their phones, spend time with their family and kids, and have it uninterrupted. There's not many things you can do like that if you think about it. It's pretty neat with the water and the beauty of it. It's very serene once you get on the river. Some of these have fishing, which the kids can do. So it's pretty special. I just think that it's a fantastic way to spend 4 or 5 days with your family or your children and experience nature because you're out there, and the beauty of sunsets and sunrises and campfires and what have you is you just can't replicate it.
I'm getting dreamy eyed. I'm going to start Googling options. I'll come
Well, if
back.
you get around to it, just call me and we can go over some of that
Yeah, well,
stuff.
there's so many rivers to choose from. That's one of the hardest parts is just figuring out where to start. Well, Jim, my last question, as it is for all my guests, what is the next big adventure that you have planned or would like to do?
My next adventure, what I'm going to do, I told you about taking the family to Mexico City, so I'm excited about that. Navigating the 80s, I'm seeing that you have to change your perspective a little bit,
Hmm.
or maybe a lot, but a little bit, and be realistic. We're not going to be going on any more class 4 whitewater trips. We got great memories, great photographs. I'd said I always like to keep something on the horizon. So doing some other things. So we're going to Sedona for kind of my travel. Then I've got a fishing trip that's every year since 1973 down to Baja, California.
Every year. Wow.
So I got that. So I've got some annual things that I do. And then I love spending time with my wife. And I don't have one big thing that I'm looking at. I'm just, as you mentioned before, trying to stay active, doing more things with the grandkids, whether it be local fishing on the North Branch of the Chicago River. You can do a lot of things that don't take a tremendous amount of time that are different.
This sounds nice. Rather than any one big adventure, you just fill your life with lots of different things. Well, Jim, thank you for the time today. I appreciated the conversation. And like I said, I'm going to have to go look up some rivers because I formulated in my mind the idea of going on a family rafting trip.
If there are any rivers on ones that are in the U.S., I'm more than happy to recommend a guide or two for you.
Oh, that's great. I'm taking notes and I'll be following up with you. So thank you for the time today, Jim. You have a good afternoon.
Okay, buddy. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Carpe Diem Live Your Dream podcast. If you like the show, there's nothing more valuable to me than you following it and sharing it with others. I drop a new episode every Friday, so tune in again for another great adventure story. And check out the accompanying website, www.gocarpediemnow.com, and then go seize the day and live your dream.